Welcome, Internet, to the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast where we discuss all the major headlines, rumors, and developments in the gaming world from this week. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. In this week's episode, we are going to be discussing the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, Sony acquiring some new studios, TV advertisements coming to a game near you, and some untimely reviews. With that said, let's get into it. Adam, how are you doing?
Dying.
Like, cause of death?
Sadness. Also heat. Lots of heat.
Do we need to talk about this? Are you okay? Like,
I don't think I need the intervention. I don't need you. I don't need Dr. Kaylan in this room, okay?
Do you need a virtual hug? I can give you a virtual hug.
No, it's COVID. We're not allowed to. We don't have our second vaccines yet. We're not allowed to hug.
It's virtual. There we go.
Sorry, I just caught something.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. Yeah, you don't have. We've talked about this many times. You don't have air conditioning in your apartment, and this week it's like 30 degrees plus humidity here in Ontario. Not the worst in the country, but certainly, you know,
we're not saying it's pleasant. I'm not allowed to bitch as much as others are.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, no one would really listen, but yeah,
no one ever does.
Yeah, I am off this week, and I've been like taking my son out, and it is just blistering hot out there, and he doesn't seem to mind. But I don't. For me, I'm just like, can't we just stay inside, kid? Like,
kids are dumb. They just want to play. That's all. I know this because I love winter as a kid, and then I got older, and then I'm like, this is stupid. I want to stay inside.
No, winter is the underrated season of the year, and I will fight for that one. We'll have to do a side chat one day.
I guess the challenge between you and me, we're both two different sizes, so it probably makes more sense that you'd like winter, whereas I wouldn't. So
yeah. Adam, we're not here to talk about seasons. We're here to talk about video games. Let's jump right into it. I want to start with what is, for me, the most exciting story of the week. A new Ghost of Tsushima game. This is coming out of Tekken Club by Dinesh.
I'm just going to know that you're talking about how we don't want to talk about seasons, and yet we're talking about a game that clearly shows off the seasons so well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's all about the transitions right there.
Even if they're intentional or not.
Dinesh at Tech and Club writes, Sony may soon present the Ghost of Tsushima, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. Several informants received details about Ghost of Tsushima, a standalone story that should expand the experience of the title. Ghost of Tsushima turned out to be a great success, and the creators eagerly expanded the game with PvP mode on PS5. However, if you believe the latest leaks, Sucker Punch has been working on a completely new story for a long time. Ghost of Tsushima is rumored to be a standalone experience that should be revealed by Sony at its next event, and developers are planning for a launch in 2021. The information was published by Attribution Nick over Twitter. The insider confirmed, among other things, Final Fantasy VII Remake that came to PS Plus and revealed Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. I'm going to continue on. I brought another article from another writer. This is from Brianna Reeves at Screen Rant. So, Ghost of Tsushima domain registered after Ghost of Tsushima DLC rumors. So, on the heels of rumors of Ghost of Tsushima expansion, a domain for something called Ghost of Tsushima has been registered online. Industry insiders, once again referencing Fictional Nick, sparked talks of the alleged standalone expansion just a few days ago, claiming to have heard that word that Sony and Sucker Punch Productions plan to launch the experience sometime in 2021. Apparently, the content won't be too dissimilar from the PlayStation players. From what PlayStation players received from the likes of Uncharted Lost Legacy and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Both standalone releases launched over a year after their respective predecessors. So, Adam, right from the get-go, what do you think of these rumors? How accurate or how likely do you think that they are?
I mean, given how successful the game was, it makes perfect sense that would be the case. If they're doing something akin to what Lost Legacy and Miles Morales were in terms of making a smaller version of that also makes sense. It's going to take a heck of a lot longer to get a really big game in there, so you get a smaller one in between life cycles, makes it perfect. You get a little bit of extra content in there, gets people a little bit more excited. You're ready to do the next big thing down the road. Makes all the sense in the world. And if you're somebody who is a big fan of Tsushima, like I know you were, and there's a lot of people that I know that were too, it's going to scratch that itch sooner, and it's going to keep you very invested in what the next thing they have to come up with is going to be, whether that's a Ghost of Tsushima 2 or something along those lines somewhere down the road.
Yeah, the only thing, like, I'm with you. I think that there is definitely legs to this rumor. What do you make of that suggestion that this is going to be a 2021 release?
Well, if we're assuming it's much like Lost Legacy and it's something they've been working on since they finished the original game, I don't worry about it. If their goal is 2021, I would say I don't like those odds, considering how most things that we thought were going to be out this year on Sony have not paid dividends.
Yeah,
I would likely assume this would be a 2022 endeavor. But if they're that far done, and maybe it's a smaller thing, like maybe a 6 to 8 hour extra little like side story, I think you can make it work. But that depends on how far in development they are, and since we're only just hearing about it now, we may not have any idea what the answer to that question is. So, you know, at first glance, sounds like it wouldn't make any sense, but you never know. Maybe one of those things that they've kept under wraps pretty well, because they've been keeping secrets down quite a bit. I mean, there was one really famous leaker that completely just destroyed their account on Reset Era because there's nothing to take from, because they're really keeping those secrets good. So it's very possible that this is something they've been working on since the game launched, and it's pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, I think in terms of timelines, it's right up the alley of, you know, should be ready to release, especially if it's a smaller game. But I'm thinking, because did we ever get confirmation that Horizon Zero or Horizon Forbidden West was going to be a 2021, or did we all just assume?
I think there was, I think there was early speculation and confirmation that it was going to be, and like anything else during this pandemic era, it's changed. We obviously don't have a date. I mean, there's the rumor it's still going around that July 8th is when Sony's going to pop in their next show. And in fact, there have been people even confirming that, and then on top of that saying a few other things on top. So it seems like we're getting close to whatever sort of announcement that will be, assuming that all this is correct. And I would still be shocked if it wasn't 2021, because I feel like they need to have something to cap off the year, and that's really the one big thing they have left, because everything else seems to have been pushed back at this point.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, like, we're basically at the end of June, so we're halfway through the year. So at this point, we have Horizon and now theoretically Ghost of Tsushima coming out in 2021, and is that going to compete or cannibalize each other when release times come? Unless we're looking at, like, could we have this released as early as August and then have Horizon in November?
I think you could have it going in between like 2 weeks of each other, and it wouldn't matter, considering how small the major games have been in these markets. I don't see, especially in the holiday season, where people are going to be really happy to spend money again, because most people are back to work by the time. I think most people are almost back to work now, especially in the US. So a lot of people are going to be pretty happy to have some money to spend around. I don't think buying 2 games for themselves or for their significant other, for their kids, depending on what situation you're in, I don't think people will be that averse to it, especially if it's those 2 games where they already know the pedigree is pretty high. So I'm not opposed to the idea, and even if it was like I said, within a couple of weeks of each other, I don't think it'll cannibalize the other, because I think most people would be happy to have both rather than one over the other.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I remember that Ghost of Tsushima and I think Last of Us 2 came out within like 6 weeks of each other, and neither seem to have struggled in terms of sales numbers, so maybe they aren't as concerned about dominating the holiday season and just dropping everything at the same time.
Yeah, and they may even be similar games, but I mean, it's the rage right now too, so it doesn't really seem to affect much. I mean, Call of Duty and Battlefield could launch next to each other in the heyday of first-person shooters, and they do fine. So
yeah,
it really doesn't matter in this specific case, and it's Sony's brand regardless, so they'll do everything that they think is making sense business-wise to make sure that they get the most out of those 2 games. So even if they wanted to just put it on the same day, I think they'd be fine, but I think they'll space it out adequately enough that they'll each have their chance to get a nice piece of the pie before the other drops in. Yeah,
for sure. Now, one of the things that they're talking about is this being one of those DLC sequel kind of things where it's not like a 1.5, it's not necessarily a full sequel, but it's not quite DLC, it's a standalone thing. What do you make of this model? Do you like this idea of doing these small iteration titles or no?
Well, I just started playing Miles Morales, so in about another episode or so, I'll be able to give you the answer to that question. I don't care, because I mean, if the pricing is right, and I know that some people were a little bit uppity about Miles Morales' initial pricing, to which I say, you didn't have to buy it at launch, so that solves your problem right there. I don't see the issue, because I mean, like I said just earlier, like if you're a big Tsushima fan, you don't want to have to wait 5 years for the next one. if you can say, hey, in a couple of years, you'll have like another small piece before the next big one comes in, like you're not going to complain about it. If they came out with like another, actually, I think the Frozen Wilds kind of technically applies to that if you're talking Horizon. So, I mean, realistically, it's never really a bad thing. And in these open world games, realistically, all you're doing is adding some cutscenes, opening the map a little bit more, and maybe putting a different skin on a couple of things. Like, it's not the hardest thing in the world to please people who love a really good game. You just give them a little bit more of that really good game, and they're pretty happy about it. I mean, look no further than Witcher fans. Like, every DLC they dropped for The Witcher 3, everybody ate the hell up. They loved it.
Those were fantastic DLCs, and I think that I like this model in terms of just having something with like meat. You get some DLCs, and it's very almost thrown together and half-assed, or there's not enough to justify it. And there's a couple I've played where it's like that was it. Like, I think of stuff like First Light was one of those ones for Infamous, which was like, okay, I kind of get this. Even and it's funny enough because it's Sucker Punch who did it, was like the infamous Festival of Blood. Like, it was good, but it was like didn't have a lot. So I think if there's a substantial amount that it feels like a smaller game, like I don't think there's anything wrong in terms of releasing that. So I think, yeah, I kind of like the DLC sequel kind of strategy that they have. Now, I know you're not.
You really take the choice, right? Like, you either get nothing for a long time, or you get a little somethings over and over. So, I mean, and until we see a situation where, like, say, a Ghost of Tsushima 2 or the next Horizon or the next Uncharted, like, if these things are going to be 10 years apart or something, then maybe we can complain. But if it's not really affecting the release windows much, and it's just like extra tidbits, like, how could we possibly complain? Like, it's not like they're making bad DLC like sequels to games that nobody cared about. Like, they're doing it for all the ones that we want to see more content for. So it's kind of hard to complain against that.
I think it all comes down to the amount of like quality, or not quality, but the amount of quantity that's on those. I think if you're not calling it a DLC, kind of add-on, and it is a standalone 1.5 game, I think that denotes a little bit more, meat on the bone, and I think that's going to be what makes it a win or lose. So
yeah, and we can make the argument that most of what they've done so far have been pretty good. So the track record shows itself. It's like anything else. Until they've really failed consistently, you can't really say anything bad about it.
Sony has definitely been nailing it in that department. By the way, we should talk about that one time, like best DLCs that we've ever played. We'll put a pin in that one for another time. Adam, you never finished Ghost of Tsushima, did you?
Nope.
Did you have any intention of ever? No, it's fine. We've discussed and we've established your lack of taste in gaming, so that's okay.
Yes, we have.
So let me ask you this, and then I'll go into like what I think this game's going to be. Do you have any thoughts in terms of either what this game's going to be? And I know you have my notes, so please do not copy those. But what do you kind of expect out of the second game, and what do you need to see to get yourself into it?
I mean, I couldn't tell you what to expect because I haven't looked anything into it, and like I said, I didn't hate the game, but I'm not the biggest fan, so I'm not exactly reading too deep into it. All I honestly want is to get into a game where the story gets me right away, because that was the problem with the first game, is that the story didn't really catch. I just really liked the gameplay and the traversing and the world. Problem is once that gets repetitive and it starts getting samey, now you need that story to keep you in the fray, and it didn't do that. Because I've played a lot of games. Horizon can be one of those games where, let's be honest, it's very repetitive after a while, but the environment and the story was good enough to keep me going. And it's happened with many other games, like Uncharted 4. As much as the combat gets samey, the story is good enough that it keeps you going. So it's like that with a lot of these things. You just got to be able to get that extra little bit to keep me in. And maybe it's just because the Tsushima games are a little bit too serious, like they're samurai dramas, right? So yeah, maybe that style just isn't my thing. Maybe I'm the one that's waiting for like more anime, like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's a lot more over the top, and you're getting, into the silly aspects, where you're getting, the crazy like Naruto run, flying up walls kind of stuff. Then maybe you get my attention, but that's not the game they're making. So
like the fortress turns into like a mech spider kind of thing.
Now you're getting. Well, actually, no spiders. No spiders. But if the game is Ghost of Tsushima 1.5, it's not really going to do much to grab my attention unless they do something a little more interesting with it. But I mean, if it's just more of the same, it's just going to be maybe short enough that I could finish it, but I don't know if I'd go far enough to try it in the first place,
Yeah. One thing that I've read a couple of these stories, and a lot of people have been talking about the game, but I haven't heard a lot of speculation in terms of what the sequel will be about. And so I was kind of I love Ghost of Tsushima, so I was kind of like, I'm gonna kind of explore and see what they would do for a 1.5 sequel. And so I put on my history cap, I cracked open Wikipedia, and I kind of did some research. So once again, Wikipedia not the most reliable history source, but let's roll with it. And if you're like a Japanese historian major and you're like, what are you talking about? Don't come at me. Like, I'm doing the best I can with the research that I did. So I was looking, and it's interesting that it's called Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But I found out that Tsushima is like an island archipelago that includes Iki Island. And so I was looking at the Mongolian invasion of Ghost of Tsushima, or that takes place in Ghost of Tsushima. And there's going to be some heavy spoilers for Ghost of Tsushima. So if you haven't played it yet, don't stick around. Adam, you're the co-host. You're contractually obligated to stick around and hear this. So what they were talking about is that
if I cover the headphones, it does nothing.
Funny how that works. But what they were talking about is that so originally the Mongolian invasion in around the 13th century, they did invade the island of Tsushima. Totally went kind of as it does in the game. They kind of conquer it. And then what ends up happening is the Mongolian fleet after that moves from Tsushima to Iki Island, or Iki, IKI, which is in the Tsushima archipelago. So what ends up happening, the person in charge, Taira no Kikitaka, is the governor, and he, puts up a defense against the army with about 100 samurai or so. Local population is also armed, and then they try and set a defense. It doesn't work. They fall back into the castle, and they get surrounded. What ends up happening is Kagitaka sends his daughter with a trusted samurai by the name of Sozuboro on a secret passage to the shore where they board a ship and they flee for the mainland. And then they kind of do like a last stand kind of situation. And so I was thinking if I was going to be making a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, this is exactly what I would probably be doing. You're going to do the next logical progression within this game. And so what's going to happen is in the final game, or in the end of the game, Jin fully accepts that he is the Ghost of Tsushima. The Shogun or the Emperor or whatever, says that the ghost is a criminal and that they disband his clan. Basically, he's a wanted man, wanted for death. So I think what ends up happening is we're going to see this situation where, having kind of pushed the Mongols away from Tsushima, he's now going to go towards Iki Island. And from there, we're going to kind of play out what I just talked about in terms of that Wikipedia breakdown. And so you're going to have a situation, he comes to shore, the locals aren't going to trust him. He's wanted by, he is marked as being someone who's not to be trusted. He's against the he's going against the laws of the land, so he's going to kind of be an outcast and sort of have to work his trust with the governor of the island. And so working his way up, he's going to be part of those major battles. And I know they talk about a samurai by the name of Sozuboro to kind of leave with the daughter. I can see that sort of being where it ends off. So you're going to be at the battle when the Mongols land. You're going to kind of be in the castle where they're pushed out, and then make an escape with the daughter to mainland China to kind of let him know what in Tsushima. So that's kind of where I'm seeing that game going. What do you think of that one?
Nerd.
For sure.
It's samurai folklore. I mean, I'm not going to say much apart from again, I didn't play the game very much to really get the story. I did read up on what happened, and I'm not really surprised by the progression of it. Mm-hmm. I'm a little disappointed that, I couldn't just go on a mad killing spree and just take out everybody, because I hated everybody in that game. But it makes perfect sense that it's okay, so you finish in one spot, you go to another spot, you try to continue to make a difference there, doing it your way, and it's kind of that struggle of, do people accept, your way because it works, or do they just keep pushing back because, the law says so? So it is an interesting story of the vigilante justice kind of stuff that you would expect from something like this. But I mean, again, you're asking the wrong person what he thinks about the story when it's a game that he didn't really seem to like the first time.
It'd be interesting if they did play that vigilante sort of double-edged sword, if they're not like a morality system, but if there was more of a decision between, am I more of a samurai or if I am more of a ghost? and playing more as a ghost, like the people, maybe what happens is like the people of the island are more supportive of you and helpful of you, but higher ups and lords and the people in charge are kind of looking down on you, and vice versa. Or vice versa. If you play as a samurai, like, people are less like, they don't see you as like the mythical hero, but you get more sway with like the lords and stuff. I don't know. I'm very excited for Ghost of Tsushima and to see where it goes. And I hope you guys are too.
I'm personally holding out for Ghost of Tsushima Blood Dragon. That's what I'm holding out for.
Just like an 80s retro vibe.
You're making it sound like this could be a bad idea.
It's just like a laser sword and you're going around with like pink and purple lights just slashing everything up.
I feel like you're just talking good shit right now, Kaylan. I don't know what the problem is.
Sucker Punch, get your pens and papers, write this all down.
Infamous with Ghost of Tsushima, let's go.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are excited for Ghost of Tsushima, let us know. What do you think the game is going to be about, and when do you think it is going to be coming out? If you're watching us on YouTube, leave a comment below, let us know, or reach out to us on our socials. Adam, moving on from there, where do you want to go next? Do you want to stick with Sony, or do you want to get your blood boiling?
Nah, save the blood boiling for the end. We put the fireworks out at the end. We got to go for the big bang after.
All right, okay, so. The next one is going to be, I don't have who it's from, but Sony acquires a paternal developer Housemarque and hints at Bluepoint being next. So Sony has acquired Housemarque, the Finnish studio behind recent PS5 exclusive Returnal, the company announced today. It was announced with a tweet which suggests Sony might also be about to acquire Bluepoint Games, the studio behind recent Demon's Souls remaster. In a blog post announcing the acquisition, PlayStation Studios head Herman Hulst said the studio is one with incredible vision, capable of creating memorable new games that resonate within our community. Although Housemarque has produced games across multiple platforms, including PC, iOS, and the Xbox 360, the majority of its recent titles have been exclusive to Sony's platforms. Prior to Returnal, it was best known for Super Stardust games, which have appeared on the PS3, PS4, and PSP. News of the Housemarque acquisition arrived alongside a tweeted image that suggests Sony is about to acquire another studio. It appears that when Sony PlayStation's Japan Twitter account tried to tweet about the Housemarque acquisition, it accidentally used a promotional image announcing an acquisition of Bluepoint Games instead. The high quality of the image suggests it's official, but premature. The original tweet and image have since been pulled, but Twitter user Nibel has verified via TweetDeck that the image came from the official PlayStation Japan account. Bluepoint Games is another studio with a long history of collaborations with Sony, as well as the recent Demon's Souls remaster. It also remastered other PlayStation titles like Shadow of the Colossus, the Uncharted trilogy, and Flower. Adam, is it pretty much all but certain that Bluepoint is going to be acquired by Sony?
If Nibelian is saying yes, then yes, I think we can confirm it. Nibelian's really, really heavy on the accuracy with these things, so if he's saying that it's a legit thing and the quality of this is legit, yeah, no, it's a thing that's going to be happening. And I don't think anybody's really surprised by this, because basically since Demon's Souls was first announced as being remade by them, everybody just assumed it was going to be a thing at some point, because most of what they've been doing in the last 10 years has been ports for PlayStation. So it makes sense that if you're giving guys, a pretty big franchise in Demon's Souls, and not only did they get it, but they did a fantastic job with it, you rein those suckers in before it's too late, because somebody else will.
Yeah, 100%. Now, yeah, I can see that. I think it's all but certain that Bluepoint is going to get acquired as well. What are your thoughts about these acquisitions? Are these worthwhile acquisitions for Sony, or do you have different opinions? If
you're talking right now, I don't think it's meaningful. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh man, they got Housemarque, that's a big deal. Oh, they got Bluepoint, that's a big deal. This is for 5-10 years down the road when we see what the next big things that they do on their own are. We saw obviously Returnal has been pretty well received. Demon's Souls was obviously really well received, but Demon's Souls for Bluepoint was a remake and not its own original game. So it's really a question of, okay, what happens if these guys have their own thing? There is also the interesting rumor that's been going on for a while now that Bluepoint was working on a Metal Gear Solid remake collection. So who knows? But I mean, if these two are like Bethesda level, they're not even like 10% Bethesda level. This is very minor acquisitions that may end up churning out some pretty amazing content for them down the road, but this isn't a needle turner. I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, I got to buy a PS5 now because they got Housemarque. you know?
Yeah.
And it's not to take a shot at Housemarque. It's just saying like, look, they aren't a needle turner at this point in their life cycles.
Yeah, and I would say like, and this is no shade against Housemarque, but they are not. They're a pretty niche studio that I think like the hardcore, people in the industry and the hobby know. But like, if you went to anyone and said like, even to be honest, the games that they make aren't games that people know off the top of the head. Like they're not celebrated, they're not talked about. Like we're not looking at something like a Fallout or a Last of Us or Battlefield or something like they're a small developer, and even Returnal. I mean, it got some traction, but it's not something that people are still hugely talking about right now. And so, I mean, it's certainly good to see the portfolio grow, and Housemarque is good at what they do. They are a fantastic studio at what they do, but they are a very, I would argue, a niche studio for a particular group of gamers. You made an interesting comment of seeing like where Bluepoint goes in terms of creating their own thing. I don't think that Bluepoint will ever make their own game. And I don't say ever like forever, ever, but I meant like in the foreseeable future. I think Bluepoint has found a niche in that they are fantastic creators of remastered properties. And so I can see Sony using them to kind of go into their back catalog and just say, hey, start picking titles, start picking IPs, and just make them your own. And that's what I see Bluepoint doing. So I think Bluepoint makes a little bit more sense, just because Sony does have that IP that they want to start making new games for. You've seen the success with Ratchet and Clank. You've seen this. Well, that was remastered in 2016, but I don't think that was Bluepoint. But you're also seeing, all the other ones that they've done that have, done great. Even that ones that weren't done by Sony exactly, but like, Crash Bandicoot. What the heck's the dragon one? Oh my god, why is it Spyro? Thank you. Spyro the Dragon, like those remasters are doing really well, and I think Sony's kind of seeing an opportunity that they can go into their back catalog, and if they have a niche developer who can just start turning those out at low cost, with pretty good return.
Yeah, you get those guys on like
awesome.
Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, like you've got something right there.
Yeah, and people are clamoring for them. Everyone has a title that they say, I'd love to have a remake of blank. And now they have a studio that can literally just project after project be doing that.
And seem to do it pretty high quality too.
And Sony could even have a situation, like imagine if Sony had a situation where it's like, hey, here are 5 properties. Let's have a campaign, vote which one you want Bluepoint to work on next.
At least it gets people talking, right?
Exactly, right?
And who knows? They may just look at that and be like, oh, wow, they really like these 3. Okay, well, Bluepoint, you handle this. Naughty Dog, you're not really doing anything right now. Hey, you want to churn out a new Jack and Daxter? Like, you just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's I think that's where I see this one going. Although, how do you feel about this being, like, I know they haven't announced the Bluepoint, but how do you feel about them announcing Housemarque just via a tweet?
As in what?
Well, I'm thinking about this, and like this is a huge announcement. Like they just purchased a new studio. There's a new one under the umbrella, and they announced it as a tweet. Like this would be something that would be awesome for them to be like, if they had done an E3-esque presentation.
You think that would be an E3 announcement?
It wouldn't be like a tentpole of it, but if they were just saying like, hey guys, we are investing in the studios and we've just purchased Housemarque. Here's what, like, they did really well. Like, it's just something that they could have had in a larger convention style show.
Nah.
And I feel like it's weird that they
I don't think it would make sense to do it that way. I mean, for most people, we just learned about Bethesda through people tweeting. So I don't think that needs to be like a major announcement. I mean, if they want to do something neat, like say they had an E3 show and they were just like, hey, we're really excited for, the next little piece of DLC that's going for Returnal. It's going to be coming out, I don't know, in November. We're also really proud to officially welcome Housemarque to the PlayStation family as like a small offshoot. But that's like the most I'd expect out of them. But I mean, if it's just a tweet, it's the same message. It's just the difference is where it's coming from. And since a lot of people get their news through Twitter, it's a pretty good way to put it.
I don't know. I think it'd be a good way to kind of show your strength if you were doing a show, sort of like, you have the PlayStation logo, like the PlayStation Studios logo pop up, and then you have, Sucker Punch, you have Naughty Dog, you have Insomniac, you have all the different studios popping up, and then you have then you have Housemarque show up, and you have Bluepoint show up, and then they're like, yep, we have 2 new studios in our thing. Returnal did awesome. We really like, what they've done, and they've been working with us for years. They are now part of the family. And then talk about, Bluepoint working with Demon Souls, and, once again, they're joining us as well. And I just feel like it kind of goes with that message of like, hey, Microsoft isn't the only one that's growing. And then I don't know. That's kind of where I'm seeing it would go.
I just don't see it being of importance to us. That sounds more like a business meeting, like the shareholders thing, being like, look, we've acquired these people, we're growing as a company. To me, you getting Housemarque or Bluepoint doesn't make a difference to me in terms of my buying power. If you buy Square Enix, you better fucking announce that as big as loud as you can, because that's a pretty big deal. But the guys who make Returnal or the guys who did the Demon Souls remake, no offense to them, like I said, but that's not something that's going to make people go immediately to Twitter and be like, holy shit, they just announced Housemarque. It'll just be like, okay, but what's the fucking big reveal you guys got at the end of this thing? Like, no one cares.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it,
like
but
that,
no one's going to care at a video.
Yeah,
like, I can imagine the Twitch chat right there just putting sleepy emotes or saying who the fuck cares in the over and over in the chat, because all they want are game reveals. I wouldn't want to waste time and energy in an E3 presentation for an announcement that could have easily been done in a tweet or even just a press release that like IGN or somebody could have done.
Yeah, you probably actually get people who would just be like, wait, they weren't part of Sony already?
There's also that confusion with the casual audience, yeah, too.
That's true. Any sort of closing thoughts? What do you think's next for anything, like what's next for these developers or anything like that?
If Bluepoint is doing some new Metal Gear stuff, I'm curious to see where that goes. That's the only thing I can honestly say, because I've never really liked Metal Gear Solid, but 5 was really fun. So maybe a remake might be a way for me to kind of tip my toes back in there and see if maybe I'd like them more. But
see, Metal Gear Solid 5 suffered from the same problem with me that you had with Ghost of Tsushima, is that I felt the gameplay was fun but very repetitive, and the story just made no sense, and I'm like, I'm out.
See, I would have said the same thing until I was able to have a dog run around with a knife in its throat and going attacking people.
Yeah.
And also, there is nothing more fun to me than playing the game of sedating everybody and playing the game of, are you good enough for me to kill you or not?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, if they did make a Metal Gear like the original one, I'd give it a shot. I feel like that's one of the things in my gaming catalog.
I'd be curious enough to try, but I mean, in terms of like Housemarque, like Returnal is one of those things that like if it drops below $20 or is like one of the PlayStation greatest hits ones where they drop it, maybe I'll look then. Maybe it's free on PlayStation Plus somewhere down the road. But like, I don't see myself in any rush to go play that game, unfortunately. Even though I've seen it looks like a lot of fun, but it's not the kind of thing that I can imagine dropping a lot of money on. Yeah,
and I think we've talked about this before. I think that $70 price point for it really hurt it, just because
I mean, think it did for the people that it would have interested.
Sorry.
For us,
I'm not saying I'm not saying it hurt it in the sense of like, oh, it could have been awesome and it failed because of it. But I think like there are a lot of people like you and I who are interested and curious about it, but it is a very niche style game for a very niche audience, and so a lot of people like us are saying, yeah, I'd love to try it, but I'm not prepared to drop.
So basically the difference is they would have had more copies sold if it was cheaper rather than, the people who got it.
Exactly. And I think there's going to be a second wave of people, like once it gets its big discounts and a second wave of people start playing it, there'll be another group kind of,
because especially now that you can wish list,
awesome.
A lot of people just have it sitting there just being like, one day I'll get you. It's like people with a Steam wish list.
Yeah, honestly, when that game gets to like $40, I'll pull the trigger and I'll give it a shot. But I don't even know if it's going to be my style of game, and I don't want to roll the dice on a full price game.
I mean, it looked a lot like Control when I saw like early gameplay bits of it, and I love the rapid like fighting nature of Control. So I feel like it'd be a very interesting way of going about it.
Yeah, for me, it's the roguelike aspect that just kind of kills me. Like, I don't have the time or the patience to go through a roguelike.
That's why you play shorter ones like Crypt of the Necrodancer, where it can take you like 5 minutes and you're still happy with yourself.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like the fact that what I've heard is, you can be hours into a run and then die and have nothing to show for it. And my gaming time is too precious in the sense of I have so little of it. So,
well, don't play Monster Hunter then.
No, I'm not playing Monster Hunter. Don't worry. Any sort of closing thoughts on this one?
No, I think I've already given everything I got.
All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Are you guys excited for the upcoming, acquisition of these two studios? Where do you think their future lies? And did you play Returnal? Are we totally off the mark? Should we be playing it right now? Let us know. All right. Let's boil your blood, and then we'll settle you down with some Untimely reviews. So this one this came on the docket last minute. So this is coming from Sarah Fisher at Axios. New platform launches to bring TV ads to console games. So after months of testing, marketers are finally going to be able to start running video ads within console and PC. So there's a company, I don't think we have it here. Do we have the name?
Oh, we have one.
I thought we had one.
It was Simul something, wasn't it?
Yeah, you find the name and I'll just keep reading the article.
Simul Media.
Simul Media, yeah. So what's going on?
Oh, sorry. Simul Media is the company. The platform is called Player One. So one is WON.
Yeah, I just lost my notes here. So what's happening is that they're realizing that, like mobile gaming, there's a lot of benefit for having, like, it could be very lucrative to having. I'll just let Sarah, Sarah's writing speak for herself. So why it matters. In-game advertising, a linchpin of mobile gaming, could be very lucrative for console and PC developers, but studios have been hesitant to adopt them, fearing that a clunky ad experience would mess with their user engagement. Driving the news, so a first of its kind in-game advertising platform called Player One, that's one as in WON, launches this week, allowing big name marketers that are used to running splashy TV ads the ability to target younger demographics with similar types of spots that will run in video games. The platform, which is owned and operated by Simul Media, a TV ad tech company, will let users determine whether they want to watch a 15 or 30-second video ad in exchange for being able to unlock exclusive gaming perks. Simul Media has struck deals with some of the world's biggest gaming studios, including EA and Tencent's Hi-Res Studios, its EVP Gaming and OTT Dave Madden told Axios. How it works is, so Simul Media, which has been testing the console gaming ads for over a year, collects and vets ad spots for big brands that would typically run on TV. Using Simul Media's technology, developers can code these ads into their games. They then can decide which rewards to provide to gamers in exchange for them to agree to watch an ad. Through its ad server, Simul Media is able to see whether an ad is completed. It then sends notifications that you can release rewards to the player. Rewards can vary from in-game currency to skins, costumes for gaming avatars. In its research, Simul Media has found that players are willing to watch up to 10 ads per day in order to unlock free perks. The company is able to calculate how much video inventory it needs to provide gaming companies by multiplying a game's daily active user count by 10. Adam, I'm guessing you're all for this.
I will make this as very clear as I possibly can. If you are Genshin Impact and free to play, do whatever the fuck you want. Don't care. Madden 2022, which will probably be where this starts, you do not get to do that because people have paid for your product, not for advertising. If you want to advertise in your game, do it with cleverness. For example, if you have a video game that is based in real life, and they happen to be, like, let's say Last of Us wouldn't work, Uncharted. Let's say at Nathan Drake's place, there's TV on in the background, and it just happens to play a Coca-Cola commercial. Who cares? If it's not forced in your face to watch it, if it's just something that plays in the background, cool, I'll deal with it. But if, in this case, like, it's mobile shit that they're trying to do here. This is mobile game crap. If you watch this, we'll give you 15 coins that go towards your account. It's like, motherfucker, I just paid $70 for this game. I don't care about your random coins. And to anybody who is okay with this, I've heard people already in Reddit threads being like, or not heard, it's Reddit, have read in Reddit threads that they're like, oh, it's no big deal, it's just a couple of ads. I'm like, guys, do you not understand that you paid for this product and they're putting in ads against your will? I saw people say, well, it's like this on television. You don't pay for the television. Depends on what we're talking about. Also, if you go to a bar and watch a game, you're not there to watch ads, but it's free, so it doesn't matter. And you technically, more often than not, don't pay for those channels. You pay for the cable. So, like, we're not talking HBO Max. We're talking ESPN. You're not paying for ESPN usually. You're paying for the box that has all the channels in it. So you're getting the game for free and getting to watch ads in the course of it. So that's one thing. But we're talking about me buying Final Fantasy 16 for $80 Canadian and then finding a way to be like, hey, if you watch this ad for Mountain Dew, you get a green sword.
Didn't Final Fantasy 15 have like a bunch of product
They
placement
had a
in terms
cup
of like,
noodles thing, and it was actually well done because they actually put time into it.
didn't they also have like Coleman lanterns and stuff too?
Well, either way, like it was stuff that was like made into quests that were actually like witty and fun.
Yeah.
Not hit this button to watch shit. That's
To be
not
fair,
what a game is for.
Your Madden example was not a strong example just because having commercials run every 15 seconds of gameplay would probably accurately reflect watching football in real life.
Yeah, but I didn't pay money to go watch the Cowboys, against the Bears. But if I'm playing a video game where the Cowboys are facing the Bears, I paid for that. Why are you making me watch advertising?
I'm 100% on board with you. Like, this is the exact same situation. Like, I equate this to like movies, and if I buy a movie off of Google Play or Apple whatever, or if I buy a DVD or a Blu-ray, like, I'm not getting advertisements dropped every 30 minutes, an hour into the movie. Like, if I buy it, it's mine. There's no advertisements in it. That's what I'm purchasing it for. If I'm bootlegging it off of TV and recording Star Wars on my VHS, like, yeah, there's going to be commercials, but no, if I'm buying the product, it's mine. I don't expect it to be
get me started on the
advertisements.
fact that I hate the fact that I pay money to walk into a movie theater to see a movie, and I have to sit down for 15 minutes of commercials before I get to see the fucking movie.
See, I don't mind. Like, it doesn't bother me that there's commercials at the beginning. Like,
I'm talking as soon as the lights go out and they still play commercials. I don't like that. Play it in your pre-show. When the pre-show is done, give me the trailers and then get the fuck on with it. I don't need to see 9 car commercials.
See, I that to me doesn't affect me because for me the experience hasn't started yet. Once the movie starts, I don't expect to see advertisements. But
no, like I said,
that,
the second the lights are out, that's movie watching to me. That's where my brain goes. The second you turn those lights off, I'm thinking, okay, I'm only seeing movies from here on out. And the first thing, it's always a car commercial. It's every time it's a car commercial.
It's always a car commercial, and it's always like banking information.
It's always like the slow piano, the do 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 do. Great performance. When you need to go out on the highway, go forth. And yeah, it's the same commercial.
I'm gonna clip that, and then next time I'm watching movies at home in my theater room, I'm just gonna play that before it starts, just so I can feel like I'm back in the movie.
It's like it's real again. But no, going back to games again, it's just the simple thing of I paid the money to get in the game. Why are you giving me stuff that would happen if I was not playing a game? Why are we suddenly doing this now? And
let me flip this for you.
Okay.
Let me flip this for you, Adam. We talked, I think, a week or two ago. I think we were talking with Kevin with Project X Talk. Check out that episode. And we were talking about the fact that games have gotten more expensive, especially with PlayStation. They're starting to talk about $80 games. If this was a way for them to bring the games down, and let's say they can start charging $40 for a brand new game, the commercials are totally optional. There's no they're not mandatory, but those who do watch it and get those perks are subsidizing the cost for others. Do you now become more receptive to this?
No, because it wouldn't happen in the first place. We're talking a hypothetical that would never happen. We'd be lucky if we get $10 off. Mm-hmm. In all honesty, if they put ads in the game, we'd be lucky if we saw $5 knocked off the price. They would just do it like nothing happened. I don't have a problem with ads. I want to make this clear. I don't have a problem with advertising in the games. The same thing with movies. If you have a cleverly placed Coke can in a scene, I don't care. But if you literally have a button at the main menu screen that says watch ads for coins, go fuck yourself. That's not what this is for. If you want to be clever, like I said, with Madden, because you brought up the example, if during halftime you say this brought to you by Hyundai, don't care. That's fine, because it's cleverly put in. If Final Fantasy 17, because it wouldn't make sense in 16 because it's medieval, if 17 goes full present day thing and they bring out the cup noodles again and it's some cleverly edged quest, I'm down. If somebody wants to do something that actually takes some effort to make interesting and fun for the gamer, I'm all for it. We see it literally Mario Kart has a Mercedes car in it. There are ways to do it without impeding on a player's ability to play the game they're playing. I don't need a watch ad button. What I need is a play game button.
They're going to have the Bel Air Direct Night in your Final Fantasy 16 can get the skin to be the Bel Air Direct Knight. You know who I'm talking about?
Can I just beat him up with a Dorito fucking dagger? I don't know.
Now this brings this is pretty new, and I don't think anyone's surprised that it's EA and Tencent who are kind of spearheading this. But
no, shocking that the worst company in the country and in the continent and the worst company in the fucking world would be doing this.
My question to you though is how realistic do you think it is that we're gonna see this implemented?
Guaranteed with those two companies, guaranteed. Tencent 100% will do it. EA will probably try in Madden because their customer base is dumb as fuck in that game. Look, if anybody wants to sit back and be like, I play Madden, I don't do that shit, you know that 90% of the people that play those games would not give a crap because they just want their football. Don't kid yourself. But if they suddenly try to do this, say, in, I don't know, the next Mass Effect game they're making, there's going to be some words. Not just from me, but from gamers in general, because, again, we're talking stuff where it really is with the passionate crowd that is not going to be quiet about it. And I'm among many people that say if that is the kind of stuff you want to put in every game, I am more than happy in not buying them. I have no problem. There are so many different ways, not so many different ways. There are so many different games, so many different companies that are doing things the right way at that point, that are not trying to take every little single bit of my attention away from the game I want to play. I'm okay with, buying some other stuff because there's a lot of things in my backlog or a lot of things on wish lists that I'm still waiting to get a crack at, and I can go spend my money elsewhere. Not everybody is going to be that kind of person because they're just like, well, I really like Battlefield. I have to buy Battlefield. I can't not buy Battlefield. Whereas my brain goes, I'm okay with never buying Assassin's Creed ever again because I don't like Ubisoft anymore. It's different spokes for different folks, I guess. But for me, this is a deal breaker if you're a company that does that. It will make me sad as fuck if Square Enix in the next Final Fantasy game does something that egregious. But if that's what it has to be, then fine. I can play that game too.
I don't think this is going to have legs. I think you're going to have a couple people who try it, and then it's going to fail. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback. There's going to be a lot of blowback from players in general, and that I think you might have maybe one or two franchises that do it. But for the most part, I think it's going to be...
I don't think it's going to go away. If I'm being completely honest, as soon as they try it, it's going to... they're doing the right games for it. They're going to do it with Genshin, I guarantee you, because...
But that makes sense. Once again, that's a free-to-play game. My time is what I'm paying for that game.
Yeah. And then they'll do it with Madden. They'll do it with their sports games because, again, that customer base just seems to accept whatever the hell they give them. Mm-hmm. And it'll probably stay there. And then somebody will get stupid and try to do it in a major AAA release. It will not go very well. A lot of people will completely bypass that game. And they'll stop. But it won't stop in certain markets because some fan bases just do not seem to care. And I don't understand why, but that's a conversation for another podcast that I could do on my own for 5 hours in a row. But
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Like I said, I don't think this really has traction, and I don't think it's going to stick around. But
I don't think it does. I just think it's going to happen, and it's going to be a miserable transition until we completely make them believe that you can't do it in every single game they put out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to just wait and see on that one. Not connected enough to get our games free and play them before they come out, so we come to you with our Untimely reviews when we play games that we've paid for. This week, I'm going to come to you with an Untimely review for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I've been playing it for the last 2 weeks or so, and generally, I like it. First off, some of the things to discuss. Graphically, I don't think I need to tell anyone, this game looks graphically incredible. One thing I particularly like about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is the decision that they've made in terms of performance versus graphic fidelity for the game. So typically with PS5 games, you can choose to having more of an HDR focus with 4K, or you can go for a 60 frame per second at the cost of graphical fidelity. With this game, they did something really neat in that you could sort of almost have a slider scale. So if you want to have 60 FPS but still have, higher graphics and some ray tracing, that is available to you. Alternatively, if you want higher graphics at the cost of frame rates, that is an option as well. And so having that slider scale was something that was really impressive and really got me on board, the whole 60 FPS. I typically would always choose graphical fidelity, going for that ray tracing 4K. But in this instance where I could have a little bit of both, I thought it was a perfect mix, and I do hope to see more games use this. In terms of Ratchet and Clank, it's your typical Ratchet and Clank game. You're going through different worlds, shooting bad guys with ever more creative weapons. And I thought the weapon design was really good in this game. Some of the games that I really liked was the Negatron Collider, which is basically like a giant beam of energy, which is awesome. The Rhino has always been a staple of Ratchet and Clank, and this one is no different. It is awesome and has a little Easter egg that I'm not going to spoil for anybody. And it also has a black hole minigun, which was another staple of mine that I really like. So it shot little black holes at enemies, and when they died, it created a massive black hole that sucked in other enemies, and I thought that was super cool. My one gripe with the guns, though, is that there was a lot of guns in there, and to upgrade them all, I felt took a lot of time. So I went through the entire game trying to load them all up, and what I was doing is I would get a new gun, play with it, load it up to the level 5, and then from there, I would then move on to my next gun to upgrade. And I felt with the duration of the game, the time it took to upgrade a weapon, and and just the amount of work it took, I felt like I didn't get a chance to actually have favorite weapons that I was able to use and enjoy throughout the game. I just kept upgrading the next gun. Was a personal choice. I could certainly have played the game with my favorites and just not worry about the other ones, but I felt compelled to do that in my playthrough. In terms of story, you are Ratchet and Clank. You have just saved the galaxy yet again, and in a celebratory parade, Ratchet is gifted a dimension gun by Clank in order to go reconnect with his long-lost Lombax race. During this parade, the weapon is stolen by Dr. Nefarious, and he begins opening up rifts that takes Ratchet and Clank into a new dimension similar to their own, where Dr. Nefarious is Emperor. This causes a whole bunch of problems with the universe and the different dimensions, and Ratchet is having to fix it alongside a fellow Lombax, the name of Rivet. Rivet is an awesome character. Absolutely love her. I thought she was really well done. I really liked the character. I think I kind of liked her a little bit more than Ratchet, surprisingly. Dialogue was great. In terms of story, I felt the story was kind of lackluster. Obviously, no one plays Ratchet and Clank for the story itself, but I felt this one was kind of just, it was kind of boring. It didn't really grasp me too much. But yeah, it was kind of whatever. It was not really anything good. One issue I think that happened is that with this game, and the gameplay wise, it probably caused it, but there's not a lot of interaction between Ratchet and Rivet. You don't see them interacting a lot. They're off doing their own parts within this story. And I felt it would have been nice to have them, be together more and sort of see how they interact. The other issue that I had with it, and this is something that we talked about during our State of Play a couple of months ago, I felt that the rifts were sort of underutilized as well. The rifts are sort of just set at preset points within the map, so there's no sort of creativity in terms of where you set up rifts and kind of using it for strategic advantages. It's
so
essentially
it ended up not being specifically for like an open world like it looked like in the trailers.
No, not at all. So you may have gotten the impression that it was sort of like the portal gun from Portal, in that you can sort of create rifts throughout. No, these are sort of preset rifts, and it makes sense story-wise why you can't do it, but from a gameplay perspective, they're preset and pre-selected, and I felt I used them sometimes, but oftentimes it was not super effective. By the time I went to a drift in a different section, I had to get reorientated. It didn't do a lot in terms of adding to the gameplay. Overall, though, I thought it was a great PS5 experience, especially if you're looking for something to show off to your friends and family as to why you needed a PlayStation 5. This is certainly it. Takes advantage of the DualSense controls in terms of if I want to shoot a gun, I can shoot a shotgun with one barrel with half a trigger, or do a double barrel shot with two. That kind of thing, which I thought was really awesome. So overall, I really liked the game, but I definitely don't think that this is unless you're a big Ratchet and Clank fan or someone who is looking to utilize their PlayStation 5, this is definitely not something that you need to have day one. And you may have already done that depending on when you're seeing this review. But generally, this is not something that you need day one. It is certainly worth, waiting for it to go on sale, maybe $49 or so. Overall, in terms of rating, I'd give this like a 7.5. Certainly not a bad game. It has a lot of great strengths, but I think it's one of those, it is not the strongest title in the collection. If you've played Ratchet and Clank before, you know exactly what this game is, what it's like. It's just Ratchet and Clank on the PS5, for good and for bad.
I mean, so far it's holding up at an 88 at Metacritic. So far, at least on that perspective, going back to our original game, I'm holding up pretty nicely at the 83 that I estimated. So
Yeah,
At
I
least so
think you're
far,
going to be
it
right.
seems like it's hitting pretty well with people. I mean, obviously the graphics are probably a big factor in it because it does look as amazing as it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's certainly a great game. Like, I'm not trying to take away from that. Like, it is not. There is no problems with this game. Like, it's forgettable, and that I think is the issue with it. Like, it looks graphically amazing right now, and I think it's just because we do not have a lot of PS5 exclusives to really look at or play. But I think as we go through the library, this will be one that is kind of forgotten. It's perfect for what Sony needs right now, but in terms for me, it does feel like it's not got a lot of meat on the bones, and it's somewhat forgettable. I do hope to see more Rivet. I thought Rivet was an awesome character. I did love the dialogue, but the story was just kind of and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like we've said before on the show many times, like we're talking about early new generation, so a lot of it's going to be focused on the looks. A lot of it's going to be focused on like some quirks here and there, as they try to figure it out. So I mean, if I guess the honest question is, do you think there's a good foundation for a future game to really turn heads now that they've got a better handle of things if they do a second one of these games on the same platform?
Oh, they certainly have they certainly have a foundation for a strong another option. Like I said, I'd love to see them interact more with Rivet and see how she kind of adds to the dynamic. I'm not going to go into spoilers in terms of what a sequel would look like, but I'd love to see them do more interaction with the two of them, and that's about as spoiler as I'm going to get. But the game also doesn't do anything super groundbreaking fundamentally that it changes Ratchet and Clank. This is essentially, if you played the 2016 Ratchet and Clank, you've played this game in terms of what it offers. It's just at a nicer, performance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, once again, not bad. I don't think the 88 is a terrible score. It certainly deserves it, but I think this game kind of gives me a vibe of similar to Killzone when the PS4 came out. It looked fantastic. It did some cool stuff, but ultimately it didn't move the needle for the franchise at all. And I don't think that this moved it drastically either. I think the biggest thing it does in terms of moving the franchise is adding a new character.
So. I mean, also at the same time, it's a big release, in a time where PlayStation really needed one. And whether or not, as long as it wasn't a dud, I think they were going to be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, this is definitely not a dud at all. And I think this game got launched at the perfect time. I think, not at the beginning of the console where there's a bunch of other titles to compete with, but not later in the generation where you're going to have a lot of, competition. I think this came at exactly the perfect spot. And I think that might be why the reviews are a little bit higher than they are, but it is still a fantastic game. I am not trying to take that away from them.
Yep. And I mean, it was the perfect way for them to show off the hardware. So they've gotten everything they want of it, and the game continues to do well in its ratings and sticks over 85 on Metacritic. I think they're all going to walk away from that being pretty happy with themselves about laying a pretty solid foundation that's only going to get better as all their developers get a better handle of the system. So,
yeah, Adam, in terms of Ratchet and Clank, are you going to be playing this? Is this something that's on your radar, or is this kind of a maybe one day?
I mean, somewhere down the road for sure. I have no inclination to play it anytime soon. I mean, I played the reboot. I was fine with it. It was okay.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't over the moon about it. Ratchet and Clank has never been my biggest game to begin with anyway, so it wasn't that surprising that I wasn't too heavy into it then. But like I said, it looks gorgeous. It looks like it would be a lot of fun in a small setting. So, if the price is right, if it's like one of their greatest hits games like we've seen with Spider-Man and Last of Us and many others, if it drops to that $20 price point, yeah, I could definitely see myself taking a stab at it for sure. Because at that price, I mean, if it's a good game at worst, that's more than $20 worth. So
I'd say if it's at that $40 to $50 price range, I think that's when I would say is if you're on the fence, if you haven't bought it yet, that's sort of where I would say like is the point to jump into. That's I think where you're going to get the best value for your money in that sense.
Yeah, I mean it depends on how long you feel like waiting. Like some people will go 6, some people will go a full year, some people will go 2 years. It just depends on the person. I mean, for me,
exactly.
If there's really nothing going on, they happen to throw it at 35. Yeah, maybe I take a look at it. If the backlog is pretty high, 35 might not be enough. Just depends on the situation,
Exactly. All right, let's leave it there. Let's wrap it up for an episode. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been listening to us for a while, thank you so much. We appreciate you sticking around. We record these podcasts for you, and we hope you enjoy them. If it's your first time here, hope it was good for you. It was certainly good for us. We post our podcasts every week on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can search for us at Pixel Play Podcast. Hey, if you want to be social and you want to interact with us, we are on Twitter and Instagram at Pixel Playcast, and you can certainly have your voice heard by emailing us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and talk about it on the air, so feel free to email us there. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.